Hi everyone, my name is Shantanu and this is going to be the first session of the module 1 wherein we're going to talk about big data and answer a few of the fundamentals around what big data is, why it is important, how it has evolved over the time. So let's probably look how your data has evolved over the time. If you step a little back, remember a couple of decades back we used to store or people from those generation used to store data in floppy drives because that was the only source or one of the sources to keep your store your data. Plus the way your data was generated was also little in space. If you look at the images backdated, they were less pixelated, they were not that high resolution. That's why they used to be in kbs. Now if you see a single image from a high-end phone or from a high-end camera, you would see that your images are in gbs rather than, if not in mbs. So that's why the amount and the gravity of your data increase, and from floppy drive it is now into large hard drives of TBs wherein you store your data, and from your hard drives to data centers which make sure that all of our data needs are served, be it in terms of backups or availability of data. So that's how data has evolved from floppy drives to the data centers. Now look at the way we are keeping our data into multiple stores, and that's how data has evolved. If you look at the data points and sources wherein we contribute to generation of data, you would understand that how we're generating so much of data. Even a single click which you use in your mobile application or your desktop application, be it any search you make in Google or any clicks you make on Amazon or any of these social e-commerce platform, that generates some sort of data in some shape or form. Whether you're buying cryptocurrency, bitcoins, ethereum, or any of those coins or stock market, each of the clicks you do generate some sort of data. Whether you're sending messages or you're liking some photograph or you're reading an article in a social media platform, that generates some events. And just imagine the way at these data are being stored and kept at the publishers, and that's why they are able to serve us better by giving us recommendation or telling us what we should do, or rather what we could like, and that's been able to they're able to do that because of the data they have been able to collect from us as in users. So that's one of the example you could relate quickly, how the data are generated and why so many sources are generating so much amount of data. We also can take a very a prime example of automobile industry with it, where it generates car. Now using those data points from coming from smart cars or self-driven car, they work on a lot on software because you could deploy software onto those cars. Brands like Hyundai has some apps wherein you could just from your home you could start your engine or turn off your car. That also generates some sort of data, and the brands collect the data and give you recommendation that how much distance your car can travel with the amount of fuel you have. When is the next time you should go to your service station and get your car checked? For drivers, likes of high-speed drivers, using the data points, at what point you should take a turn and at what speed and what should be the RPM. Combination of all of those data points actually helps you to take decision, and those decisions are actually converted into results. So that's how it works. You collect the data, you make some decision on top of those data, and those decisions convert into a result. So these are the primary example in terms of mobile phone and automobile industry which generates data, and that's how we contribute to the big data generating data. So how do you quantify that data is big? You've understood that this is how data is generated, but how do you is there a formula wherein you could understand that If these factors are present, then your data is considered as a big data. So one of the factor is data volume. If your amount of volume of your data is huge, just imagine the data is generated every time you drive your car, or your self-driven car, or your auto, or any of your smart cars, any mobile application you use. So they're generating the data, and the volume grows because every day users are increasing. And if the volume is more, your data is considered as big. But that's not the only factor. If your velocity at which your data is growing, the speed at which your data is growing, if you had few TBs of data available couple of months back and you have 100 of TVs, and that's a linear exponential speed at which your data is growing, then combination of your velocity and volume considered as big data. And not only that, you have another V, so that's variety of data. Could be your if your data is coming in text form, raw form, or CSV, or unstructured data like music, audio files, X-ray images, or binary or hexadecimal. These are considered as a big data as well. So consideration of all of these V's, velocity, variety, and volume, conglomeration of this makes your data as a big data. So that's how you consider your data as big data. Your data can be segregated into multiple types, and that is structured, unstructured, and semi-structured. Structured form of data, wherein your schema is known. You could put your data onto some sort of database because you've got your columns and rows, you've got your key and value. Your data is structured. So that's how your structured data works. Semi-structured, wherein your data is partially structured, and then you've got an unstructured, like any sort of files, images, X-rays, all of those messages are considered as an unstructured data. So these are form of data. So what's the benefit we're getting as an end users when the publishers or the companies collect these data? One of the benefit is, I can give you an example of YouTube. We get recommendation when we watch a YouTube. You watch a type of music once, and you'll start getting the recommendation of that type of music from the next day. It collects your likings, your data, and it tries to matches with other other music lovers. Let's suppose you like pop music, hip hop music, and it'll try to compare your data points with other users and try to recommend you other pop music, which is also beneficial, and you can choose whether to listen or not. So that's how your recommendation happens in YouTube. It also helps in data also big data also helps in threat detection. Let's suppose you're using some sort of debit card and you swiped your debit card in an ATM in some area, and after 5 minutes you get a message that your card was used in an ATM which was 200 kilometers far from where you use now. That means that it's practically impossible. So it actually helps you in these threat detection scenarios as well. A lot of us wear smartwatch to generate some sort of data that also generates data, and that's how medical industry or these smartwatches are able to give us some beneficial data, like how much time we are sleeping, what was the time we slept best at, what was the peaceful sleep ratio, and a lot of these information which can be used, which helps us that the quality of our sleep, blood pressure monitoring. It recommends to uh, drink water, and also all those fancy things. So that's how it is able to, these publishers are able to recommend us beneficial things basis on the data collected from us. Let's look at the few of the facts which kind of tells us how enormously the data is growing. So 90% of the total data we have that exists generated in last 2 years. So just imagine how much data we're generating in last couple of years. Obviously, one of the reason keeping data, storing data, generating data is really cheap. Each person connected generates data every second. 11 million messages are getting generated every minute. 1.4 million video and more than 150,000 messages are generated on Facebook every minute, with 500 million stories every day being put in by users, thousands of monthly active users compared to few hundreds couple of months back. And then we've got more than 1 lakh tweets which is happening or done by users every minute. So that was about data, big data in its own, how it has evolved, what are the combination which makes a data as a big, and what are the benefits we are seeking from big data. So we talked about what and how big data has evolved. We classified data in terms of unstructured, structured data using the data types. We also understood how big data is utilized and helps us in our daily life, and what important factor triggers to big data. That's it from this video. In the next video, we're going to get started with introduction to Apache Spark, understand a little more about Spark so that we can move on to our next topic, that is Databricks. I hope this was informative. Thank you.